Hello everybody, I'm George from Ireland. So I'm making a video about Jimmy Carr and the Gypsy Holocaust now. I was doing that a minute ago, but the connection was lost trying to do it live. So I was saying that Jimmy Carr is a British stand-up comic, in case you don't know him. And he recently cracked a joke right live on television, I think it was actually yesterday night, in which he said the positive thing about the Holocaust had been the murder of the Gypsies, and this was greeted with raucous laughter from his audience. So he's notorious for his macabre mirth, but many people think that this one it really has gone too far. Not so many people know about the Holocaust towards the Gypsies. Porajmos, if I pronounce it correctly, in the Roma language. Or anyway, so it's at least 140,000 Gypsies were killed by National Socialists from 1942 to 45. It may have been 10 times that figure, but they weren't a very organised, illiterate community, so they didn't leave so many traces on society's records. It's not such a well archived genocide as the genocide against the Jewish community in Europe, which happened at the very same time. So there have been racism against Gypsies for a very long time in Europe. The Gypsies, they originated in Gujarat, India, over 1,000 years ago, but they began their trek west, passed through many countries, lived in Egypt for some time, and in the 16th century they first came to England. So the English, they thought these people were Egyptians, called them Egyptians because they'd passed through Egypt, and that word Egyptian stuck was transformed into gypsy by the 18th century. Mole Flanders has still been called Egyptians. But anyway, they were an itinerant people, and there was severe prejudice against them. They tend to have low literacy, though they conform themselves to the major religion of wherever they were. They're usually not accepted by the sedentary community. They would often be enslaved and so on, and ill-used. And in Romania, there were slaves until 1859, and bigotry against them has not entirely disappeared there, I'm afraid to say. So even well before the Third Reich was established, there had been legal discrimination against Gypsies in Germany, 1926, requiring registration and so on, viewing them as a problem, a policy about them calling the Gypsy plague, being dehumanized, their presence being described as an infestation, and so on, and claiming they're unhygienic, and all these hot button words designed to heighten animus against this marginalized community. And anyway, so hundreds of thousands of them were killed in the Holocaust, some of them directly killed, as in gas shots, some of them indirectly killed, dying through a combination of malnutrition, overwork, inadequate clothing, and shelter in cold weather, in sanitary conditions, and so forth. The significant Gypsy communities to this day in Hungary, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Romania, Bulgaria having the highest proportion of Gypsies in the general population in the world at about 11%. So Jimmy Carr's joke has horrified many people, and it's provoked a very strong pushback. The Culture Secretary is Nadine Dorries. So this Conservative MP has said that this is appalling what he did, and that such egregiously offensive jokes ought to be outlawed from live broadcast. She didn't say it should be forbidden altogether, just from live broadcast. I know many people are disgusted by what he says. But anyway, I submit that they shouldn't be forbidden, even though I know that they're grossly insulting to many people. I mean, insensitive doesn't begin to describe it, but I don't think the government should be censorious like this. If you don't like Jimmy Carr's show, then simply don't watch his show. His shtick is well known, so maybe some people can vote with their feet or their wallets, and people might withdraw advertising revenue or that kind of thing. So that's it. I mean, I don't think he's an anti-Zionist. I think it's just a joke in very poor taste, and I do think utterly unfunny as well. But I think tragedy jokes should be allowed. And why do people laugh in these situations? I suppose sometimes they just don't know how else to react. They're so stunned that he had the nerve to say such a horrific and shocking thing. But Ms. Dorries has previously expressed the opposite viewpoint and said that left-wing snowflakes were ruining comedy. But she says this is not about snowflakery, this is not comedy, this is trying to legitimize racialism, make it mainstream, as though it's just all for a laugh. Not a laugh for the Gypsies who were annihilated. We sometimes call them Roma or Sinti people, and obviously they face some prejudice to this day. So they don't always follow that traditional Roman child lifestyle in Nevada, moving from place to place. Many of them live a settled lifestyle. They still got their language, and some of these have been absorbed into mainstream, well, into English. Chav, supposedly come from chavni, child, or I can't think what some of the other words were. So some people think this is really dehumanizing and nauseating, but is it punching down rather than punching up? But perhaps he's actually done us a service in exposing how widespread prejudice is at the time. I mean, the people who chortled at his gag, I don't think they're all anti-Zionists. I don't know. Maybe some of them are. We can't pretend that there's no anti-Zionist feeling anywhere. And it's not so widely recognised, the Holocaust against the Gypsies. And so, because we don't really know how many Gypsies there were in 1942, and we don't know how many were killed, it's very difficult to give an accurate estimate of how many were killed. Like the Jewish community, the ballpark figure is 6 million, it might have been 5.5 million, it might have been 7 million, partly depending on who you count as being Jewish. One of the persons any ordered Jewish, for instance, on the father's side. And what do you count as being killed? Well, really anyone who killed in Nazi custody or died is regarded as being killed by them, even if they died of somewhat natural causes. Partly was the terrible conditions willfully created by the Third Reich that killed people, even if they weren't directly killed as being shot or indeed gassed. Gypsies, as I say, data is hard to come by, so we have to use educated guesses. And it comes obviously not terribly long after Holocaust Memorial Day. So what percentage of the Gypsies in Eastern Europe were killed? Well, they were all over Europe, but they were more heavily concentrated in Eastern Europe. It's very hard to give a percentage. Was it as low as 5%? Was it as high as 50%? So anywhere in between there. The entire Jewish community in the world, it's like 33% were killed in the space of just 3 years. Obviously, of European Jews, it's much higher than that. It's 60%, perhaps more. Okay, so that's it. Well, he's so far refused to apologise. He's standing by it, and I suppose he has his loyal fans who'll stand by him no matter what. It might well terminate his career. But he's told all sorts of other jokes that many people have found revolting, like about abortion and so on. And I'm almost a free speech fundamentalist, saying though this was shameful and deeply unpleasant, I don't think it's for the government to come in and declare these things to be illegal. Now, you could say he's causing disharmonious relations. Some people might even argue this is incitement to racial hatred. Would there be a case for prosecution on those grounds? I don't think so, but perhaps some of you will suggest. Well, what do you think? I'm very enthralled to hear what your remarks on Jimmy Savile. Should he retract? Should he issue a grovelling apology? Is this within the bounds of taste and decency? Or do you think it's not, as I do? Should they continue to be broadcast? Well, thank you for watching. Goodbye.